clear that I'm the one.
One for what?
To carry out his mission.
Yeah, I think you're confused. That mission's set aside for me.
What?
Oh yeah, you see, I'm the most qualified.
And just how do you figure that?
Well, I've memorized the most scripture. I've certainly been to church more often than you heathens. And besides, I have a real heart for God. I'm just bursting with humility.
Right. So you're wrong. You can't be more unqualified.
What? They're right. I saw you the other day. Do you honestly think that that bar is Jesus' territory? that drink you were having was Jesus' material?
Okay, wait a minute. I saw you ignoring a homeless person and just walking by. And as for you, not only did I see you fooling around, I've heard you misquote the Bible and even take money out of the plate when it's being passed around.
You're talking about ancient history. Besides, I've been redeemed or saved or whatever you call it. I'm on God's team, and there's no better quarterback than me.
Well, you might be good enough to be a water boy or something, but you're certainly not a quarterback.
Well, when Jesus gets here, we'll just see.
Hey all, good to see you.
Okay, so
Hey,
Jesus, you need to tell
tell
them
them
that
I'm the
I'm the
one
one
that-
who's really one for this.
Whoa, slow down. This is the most important mission ever. Their lives at stake. That's why I had to really think about what I wanted to do and carefully choose someone to carry on my work.
Yes.
And my choice is all of you. I mean all of you.
You really expect me to work with them?
Jesus, I thought we had a good thing going.
You gotta be mistaken. It's gotta be me.
That's sweet.
So God says, just do your part. But we think it's not enough. God says, trust in me. But we look at the complexities of our problems, and we think it takes something more than what God has given us. We hear the noise of so many voices, so many priorities, and we wonder how to sort it out. God says, listen to me. God speaks. We should listen and act together. And we can, all because of this simple truth. In Jesus Christ, we are forgiven.
Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Okay, chosen. So, how many of you feel chosen? Really? Okay, good. How many of you feel like it is all on your shoulders? No, seriously though, there's this myth, isn't there, that's prevalent in our culture, in our society, in our thinking, and we really don't question it a whole lot. In fact, we might not even be aware of how it affects our thinking, and it's the myth of the solitary hero. Now, don't get me wrong, the power of one person to affect change is really, really important, and it can happen. And the effects that somebody can do should not be underestimated. But in the end, this myth permeates all of our thinking. In a lot of our stories, imaginary and otherwise, we always focus on some hero who's got certain kinds of powers or some kind of thing that sets them apart, and then it's up to them to save the day or to make the big change or whatever it is that's supposed to happen. Even where we decide that that person needs a lot of help, we often say it's all up to them. But what about, say, our founding fathers and mothers? You know, these are just human beings. What about some of the other people that we might idolize, like Pat, or maybe even St. Teresa, or what about MLK or the Pope, who demonstrated unmitigated humility? Now, we might talk about dictators, but the truth is, even though they are solitary people and they seem to wield a lot of power, the truth is they can't do this without the consent of all the people. I mean, because if the people didn't want them there, they couldn't be there. And so you get this sense that yes, sometimes it seems like one person wields all of this power, but the truth is, it really takes all of us. Now, I think the source of this is a misunderstanding of how we think about what it means to be the Messiah. We get this idea of the Messiah complex, right? Where somebody thinks that they are the one and it's all up to them and everybody needs to do what they say, and if they follow what they say, they're going to come into glory, right? It reminds me of this comic that I think I've shared with you before, where the leader comes out and he says to the tribe, so the gods have said that there must be a sacrifice and it has to be somebody other than me. Really? But this is not what Jesus did, right? Jesus came, and yes, Jesus was unique. He was special. He was set apart. But when Jesus came, he came to save us. He came to empower us. An example of what I'm talking about is Matthew 14. This is 13 through 21. It's a story that might be familiar to you. It's the feeding of the 5,000. And it goes like this. When Jesus heard about John, that is, that he had been beheaded, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. And who knows exactly why he did this. Maybe it was to grieve. Maybe it was to regroup. He did this sometimes anyway, so maybe it was just his practice. But he did this. And when the crowds learned this, they followed him on foot from the cities. When Jesus arrived and saw a large crowd, he had compassion for them and healed those who were sick. That evening, his disciples came to him and said, this is an isolated place, and it's getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go into the villages and buy food for themselves. Makes sense, right? But Jesus said to them, there's no need to send them away. You give them something to eat. Now, I want you to take a moment and just think of yourself as the disciples. What's going on in your mind? What are you thinking?
He lost it.
Okay, but why do you say he's lost it?
We don't have enough food to feed that.
Right, and the disciples say as much. I mean, it's completely sensible and it fits. They replied, we have nothing here except 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. That's what we got. He said, bring them here to me. I want you to remember that. He ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. He took the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed them, and broke the loaves apart and gave them to the disciples. The disciples then gave them to the crowds. Everyone ate until they were full, and they filled 12 baskets with the leftovers. About 5,000 men, plus women and children, had eaten. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So, I mean, again, you can see the scene, can't you? You've got all these people who come to listen to Jesus. They come to see Jesus. They come to experience Jesus. And look, he's there healing people. He's doing some of the things that they were expecting. But then here it is. They're all hungry. It's time for them to go. The disciples say so. It's completely sensible. And then Jesus says, you give them something to eat. It's one of those moments when we realize the truth, right? There's this comic that I found when I was researching this, and I don't know if you can see it, but it says, the fish and bread were great, Jesus, but everyone is hoping you can make a little something out of this slice of cheesecake. And we get this sense that, is Jesus just there to do tricks for us or to show us how powerful Jesus is or any of that? No. That's not why Jesus came. Jesus had nothing to prove, certainly not to us. Unlike our solitary hero myth, Jesus came to save us, to empower us, to enlist us. Because of Christ's sacrifice in the Spirit of God, we have it within each of us together to be the hero. No capes, no remarkable feats, no special powers, just us doing what we can do. And so no matter what we might want to think about how salvation works or the kingdom of God, how that gets built, God has always looked for partners in humanity. And only God knows why. Right? We know humanity. We are familiar with all of our faults. But there's also greatness there. And I think that that's what God is really counting on. And so from the dominion in the dawn of creation to the marches around the walls of Jericho, from the tablets of the Ten Commandments that Moses received to even the reluctant preaching in Jonah, from the faithful exiles to the faithless disciples who refused to stand by a crucified Christ, God has called them all. God has chosen us all. So what do we do with the plain vocation that God is calling us to as disciples? What do we do with the straightforward, urgent, and ordinary call to compassion? Now I got to tell you, this is playing out, right, in our national politics. Because as powerful a position that the presidency might be is larger than life, a personality that President Trump might be, he can't govern by himself. Even while controlling both branches of Congress and the White House, and to a certain extent even the Supreme Court, nothing can be accomplished if the Republicans, and frankly the Democrats also, if they don't work together and move and act together. That's how our government was designed. And frankly, that's how we were designed too. It's no different for our congregation. If we don't move and act together, then yes, all of those things that we might identify as problems for us will be very difficult to achieve, if at all. But together, there's nothing impossible for us. And it's not because we are necessarily all that powerful. You know, I love this image because on the shirt it says, I asked God for strength and courage, and He sent my wife. There are many times that I find myself relying on Mandy's strength or her observations. I have this sense that, man, where I left up to my own devices, I might take a different path, but because she's in my life, it's different. Because my best friend from college is in my life, it's different. If we go back, Betsy Rich was retiring, and I had the privilege to be able to go, and when she was there were lots of accolades being thrown on her. But even she said that there's no way she could have done all she did without the help of all the people that she worked with. George likes to talk about his service in the military. And sometimes he likes to talk about it like he was the only one there. But the truth is, he wasn't the only one there. And not only that, but George couldn't have had this celebration by himself. Because his buddies are the ones who put his medals in the display. They're the ones who helped him to celebrate this moment. And if they weren't there, how could he do that? And look, medals aren't the only way to determine who our heroes should be. Sometimes our heroes are just identified by what they do on a regular basis, by simply who they are. And I got to tell you, there's this group of people, the dulcimer players, that they practice in the Fleming room every Wednesday afternoon. And they started out with like 5 people. And now they've got all of these folks. In fact, this isn't even all of them, because some of them were missing that day. But they would tell you that their sound is so much better because everyone is playing. Even if everyone isn't necessarily playing right. It's so much better when they're playing together than when they're off playing by themselves. It's more fun that way. I can't help but wonder about our mission trip that we just celebrated last month. And the idea that we could do any of what we did on our own. We needed each other. There's no way we could have squared up what we needed to. There's no way we could have lifted up what we needed to or dug out what we needed to all by ourselves. Maybe we could have, but it would have taken an inordinately long time. But because we were acting together, we did all that we did in less than a week. It's possible. Can you imagine what the folks in Jesus' day would have thought of skyscrapers? Or helicopters? Some of the medical marvels that we participate in. What would they have said? Who could have done such a thing? Well, sure, there might have been an architect, there might have been someone who was the foreman who helped to build those things, but in the end, it took a community. Just like it does for us, for our leadership. No one person can be the session. And that's by design. I do not own this church, as one little bit said to me the other day. Do you own a church? And I was like, heck no. But I'm a part of it. I'm a part of it. You see, when Jesus came to the disciples, he wasn't expecting them to climb up mountains. He wasn't expecting them to fly or have X-ray vision or to have capes where they had super strength or any of that stuff. He simply said, what have you got? And then he said, okay, that'll work. Bring it to me. How many excuses have we laid out for why we can't do something that God has put in front of us? How many times have we said, well, I don't know, that's impossible. And maybe it is for us by ourselves. But together, is anything really impossible? This image of a mosaic is on, I'm trying to remember, it's on the floor, I think, of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But wherever it is, it's made up, of course, of little stones, little pieces that kind of create this picture. And it reminds me of how I used to think. Growing up in the military, I thought that denominations were an evil thing. I thought they were against God's will. Because everywhere I went, people were basically the same. And everywhere I went, the church was essentially the church. But I came to realize later that I can't be the church by myself. I can't go on mission trips by myself. I can't even understand my own call by myself. It takes a mosaic. Some of you might recognize this from our efforts to do the Stop Hunger Now campaign. It's called Rise Against Hunger Now. And the idea is that we are going to pack 10,000 meals in just over an hour. So, Nancy, if I came to you and I said, hey Nancy, I need you to pack 10,000 meals in an hour, what would you say?
No. You know what?
Right. And you would be correct. Right? If I picked out 5 of you and said, I need you to pack 10,000 meals for me in an hour, what would you say?
No way.
But because each of us were in our stations, we were in our various roles, and we all pitched in together, we were able to do this thing. And not just us here, but all the people to whom the boxes that we packed up of the meals actually went. Because not only did we pack these meals in just over an hour, and it was indeed 10,000, but as we send them out, all of the distribution pieces of the network, all those people that we partner with, including the folks who eventually receive these meals into the schools that they're sent to, so that the people come, they get their education, and they take this food and carry it home. It's a ticket out of poverty. And the formula works. And we are a part of it. We're ending poverty. But is that something I could have done by myself? No. Is it something that we can do together? Of course it is. And I think that was Jesus' point in the feeding of the 5,000. We must determine together to be the hero of the story. We must do not the extraordinary, but the ordinary, the everyday, in order that God's will be done and our community be changed for the better. This can and will happen because of whom God is and whom God is choosing for us to be. And so, my friends, the advice is very simple, it's straightforward, and it is worthy of our consideration. Jesus simply says, You've given it something to eat. Amen. So again, what seems impossible for us individually may very well be. I mean, I'm not going to end hunger by myself. Nancy is not going to pay for the fellowship hall renovations by herself. Mandy can't teach all of the Sunday school classes by herself. It takes all of us. It takes all of us. And the simple God-given truth is that we weren't meant to try and do these things alone. That is, God meant for us to act together. And so, what can we do to bring the reality of God's will into our lives? So this week, I want you to consider the following. First, why do you think God brought us all together at Hawfields? Why? And second, why do you think God has sustained our congregation in this area for so long? 262 years and counting. What do you think that's about? And third, why do you think God made it so that we would have to rely on each other? It's not an aberration. It's by design. We're supposed to lean on each other. We're supposed to roll together. And fourth, think about a problem in our community, whatever it is. And if you had unlimited resources, what would you do about it? What would you do if you had unlimited resources? And now remember who it is that you're working for. You're working for the creator of the universe. Pretty sure God has unlimited resources. So what are you waiting for? And last, when addressing a problem or a situation with God, do you pray for things to turn out a certain way, or do you pray that God makes you able? Do you pray for strength, or do you pray to be open to the help and partnership of others?